sustaining force.
Okay, 511, chapter, is it chapter 8, part 4? Go
How
ahead.
the sustaining force interacts with the lower worlds. Rabbi, we also need to examine the way this force interrelates with the lower worlds themselves. Note 48. Lev, are you up for the notes? I can do this one.
1 second. I think I might be able to, but my page 511 is blank.
What?
Yeah, 510, 511. There's nothing on it.
You've been
Gil had a
swindled.
similar issue with his printing. I don't know.
It's a big racket.
They print half as many books
Right.
and to leave them with blanks.
Yeah, so I can't read the notes, I guess.
I'll do the note.
I have more blank pages.
Which ones?
Wow, page 514 and 515 are blank. 57. Oh my gosh, look at all these. A whole lot of them.
Oh no, that's terrible.
Wow. I'm glad I didn't try to read this. I would have gotten really frustrated.
Yeah, so Lev, how did your pre-reading go?
I had to pass. I guess I'm overloaded, man. I'm on overload.
It was there. It was there during the week. I was waiting for you, and I was like, okay.
Disappearing ink.
Totally blank. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to do it.
I sent
I
you
guess
on WhatsApp. I'll send you the pages you're missing.
All right. I might have to get my computer so I can read the screen. This thing's too small.
Okay, you can. I'll do. Wait.
I'll read this one. That's
Ori,
okay.
You want to do the notes? Okay. Can you read out there?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, go on. You do the footnotes.
Okay, I'll do the footnotes.
All right, so Ori, we're up to note 48.
Okay.
On page 511.
Great. In this chapter, we have examined the force that sustains all of creation and how it interrelates with the emanations through which God acts upon the world. We have learned that the resulting changes in the sustaining force account for everything we see in the lower worlds. For example, if the sustaining force receives an influx from the higher emanations, blessing comes down into the world. If not, no blessing comes down. However, we have not yet examined how exactly the sustaining force interacts with the lower worlds to produce these effects. In other words, we've analyzed the relationship between the active emanations and the sustaining force, but we have not yet analyzed the relationship between the sustaining force and the lower worlds.
I will explain this with an analogy. Man consists of a body and soul, and we know that every movement of the body is caused by the soul. Nevertheless, we also need to know how the soul is actually linked to the body and how it acts within the body to bring about these movements. So too, we need to know the way this force behind the lower worlds interacts with the lower worlds themselves. Note 49.
Just as all the changes and movements of the body are caused by the soul as it acts within the body, so too all the changes and developments in the world are caused by this divine receiving force as it acts within the world. Just as it is important to know not just the fact that the soul moves the body, but also how it connects to the body in order to do this, so too it is important to know not just that this divine force changes the nature of the world, but also how exactly it connects with the world to do this.
I will tell you something deep with regard to this subject. The divine glory is what dwells everywhere and gives life to everything that exists. As the verse testifies, you give life to everything. Note 50.
The aspect of the sustaining force behind the lower worlds that actually descends to connect with the lower worlds and gives life to them is called the divine glory. We shall see that every single thing in creation was created as a means to reveal God's glory and oneness. When man uses the world in this way, God's glory fills the world and becomes revealed for all to see. Then the world is called the throne of his glory, as it serves as the support and dwelling place of the divine glory. However, when man sins and uses the world for his own ends, this divine glory becomes distanced from the world, leaving it weakened and dark.
Therefore it says, the whole world is filled with his glory. However, man's sins distance this glory from the lower worlds. As it says,
Lev, let me know which pages you need. You okay on 513?
Me?
Yeah.
It's like this whole chapter, it's like every other page is missing. I even didn't, I just put the book down. Let me go get it.
Okay, I can just send you I'll shoot them off to you.
Yeah, I was trying to get onto the computer so I could see it, but I'm sorry, you guys. I started on 511. Don't have that. I have 512 and 513.
Yeah, that's where we're at. Okay, why don't you read those?
You mean out loud?
No, just follow on.
as it says, it is only your sins that separate between you and your God. Note 51.
Yet even in such a time, the divine glory still maintains a minimal connection with the world. Otherwise, everything would cease to exist.
Conversely, man's merits cause this glory to dwell in the lower worlds, as it is written, and I will dwell amongst them. Note 52.
God instructed the Jewish people to use all their skills, possessions, and aspirations to construct the Mishkan to receive the divine presence. Then God promises, I will dwell amongst them. As a result of their actions, the divine glory would dwell in the lower worlds.
In fact, God's glory is itself increased and elevated when it dwells in the lower worlds. As our sages have stated, everything that God created in the world is only for the sake of revealing his glory. 53.
When man uses every aspect of creation in order to reveal God's glory and oneness, the world achieves its purpose. This allows the divine forces that act on the world to join with the receiving force of the lower worlds, flooding the world with blessing and causing God's glory to be revealed in its full power. This is described as God's glory is itself increased and elevated, unquote.
So it's interesting. The concept of God's glory filling the world is a concept of Kedusha, right? Kadosh, 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 Hashem Tzavakos, Melo Kol Haaretz Kavodo. The whole world is full of his glory. The opposite of Kedusha is Chilul, right? Kedusha Hashem, Chilul Hashem. A Chilul comes from the word Chalal, which means a void or a emptiness. So that's really what this is about. He's saying the receiving force should contain God's glory. And when it does, there's a real Kiddush Hashem. But when it doesn't, there's a Chilul Hashem, there's an emptiness, not just meaning you can almost picture it. There's an empty space that hasn't been filled with what it was meant to be filled by.
Rabbi, can you explain why they were talking about a receiving force? To my understanding of force, I mean, I don't mean to imply physics on it, but a force is something that acts upon something else. And so, isn't that paradoxical to say receiving force? What do they mean when they say receiving force?
I don't know.
We had some of this, I think it might have been last week or the week before, but it was something about how you have to be receptive. There was this bit about the antenna. I remember Lev in particular. And to the degree that one is receptive, one can receive. That is, there's the face-to-face versus back-to-back. Sorry, I'm just remembering some of the phrases that connected to it. I don't know if this jogs anybody else's memory in this regard.
Does that address Uri's issue of why
Of
it's
the
called a
receiving
hashpa?
force?
Yeah, and even in the Hebrew, it's called a hashpa'ah, which is a kind of
Acting upon, right?
yeah,
There was a sense in which the reception was active.
yeah.
That by receiving, you were calling it forth. At least that's
Okay.
how. So
Uh-huh.
Thank you.
if I
Yeah, I
had to
think
make
that's a
guess.
nice way of saying it, and it's sounding like that's what he said. Okay.
Yeah. We're at 53. Was that the last note? Was 53 or 52? I'm sorry, I'm a little bit.
Yeah,
53.
There are a lot of
Okay.
them.
And in reference to the exile of the Jewish people, it is stated they went without strength before the pursuer, because the divine glory was far from them. And we find in the verse, their protective shadow, i.e., the divine glory, has departed from them. Note 54.
See second explanation of Rashi there.
Okay, I will do that. But with reference to the redemption of the Jewish people, it is stated God's glory will shine upon you. At that time, it goes without saying that the divine glory will itself be elevated. 55.
Not only will the world become elevated at such a time, but the divine glory itself will also become elevated.
You should know that this matter of the divine glory being revealed in the world is heavily dependent on the angels and their actions. This is because God chose that his actions should be carried out by servants, his holy angels. Note 56.
See Adir Bamarom, page 262, where the Ramchal explains that the essence of the soul is from a level higher than the angels. Therefore, if God had transmitted his divine glory directly to our souls, we would have been bound to God so closely that there would have been no room for free choice, as in fact will be the situation in the world to come. Therefore, he enveloped his glory within these angels in such a way that they would be the transmitters of his glory to the lower worlds. In this way, the souls could temporarily be distanced from their source and enter the body to serve God through free choice.
Therefore, he chose to rest his presence upon these angels, his emissaries who carry out all his decrees. His mastership is with them at all times. As our sages commented on the verse, the master is with them, i.e., the angels. His mastership is with them. They also said, God's name is joined to each angel. This divine glory stands over all legions.
Hang on a second.
Yeah.
This is 5:15. Okay.
Right?
That's-
I did okay, right? I was checking I didn't.
No, I just want to send them to Lev because
Oh,
Lev,
sorry.
do you have these now?
How did you send them to me?
I'm gonna WhatsApp it to you.
Okay. All right. Let me
Maybe
see.
it's easiest to do Safaria and just find.
Is it on Safaria?
And not this
think everything.
translation.
Oh yeah.
Oh, right, because we're reading the right. We're reading the English.
Let me see if I could do this without.
I just sent you like 5:15 on WhatsApp.
Okay, I see that. I'm gonna try to do it on my computer.
Oh, because it's hard to get WhatsApp on the computer.
No, I got
That
it. I
doesn't-
got it.
Oh,
Okay, got it.
Okay, the
All right.
divine glory. You see that at the top?
Wait a second. The last page that you just said.
I think I don't know how it on my.
Oh, wait a second. I see 522, 5. What? 521.
5:15.
I think I might be close.
I think it should be the first one that came through. Interesting.
Oh,
It was
complicated.
511 that I
Guys,
sent you before.
I see 17 and oh, I don't know how to use this, man. It's not working very well for me. Oh, there we go. Let's see. 517, 514,
Yeah.
515.
Okay, good.
515.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now remember, the notes start on 515, then go to 514. Right? The Hebrew starts on 514, and that's why it's before 515.
Got it.
Okay. Let's go down.
This divine glory stands over all the legions of heaven and attaches itself to them at all times. However, it does this according to the level and importance of each angel, since they also have their various different levels. Note 57.
Each angel is responsible for revealing a particular aspect of the divine glory within the world. What this aspect is will depend on the level and characteristics of each individual angel.
You should also know that although the divine glory is everywhere, it is more manifest in one particular place than anywhere else. A unique place where those who wish to attach themselves to him can seek him out. As it says, you shall seek out his presence and go there. It is also written, every man among you shall present himself before the Master, the Eternal, the God of Israel. Many patterns and arrangements, one level above another. Oh, I'm sorry, note 58.
This was a command for every Jewish man to go to the Beit HaMidrash in Yerushalayim at each of the 3 festivals to experience God's presence.
Many patterns and arrangements, one level above another, are needed for this to be possible, until at the end one is able to become attached to the holiness of his glory. The entire structure of the Mishkan and that of the Beit HaMikdash were modeled on this principle, level within level, until the innermost sanctuary where God's glory dwelled. 59.
In order for the divine glory to be able to strongly manifest itself in one particular place, God arranged many complex structures and patterns from the higher worlds to the lowest worlds. These patterns and structures were precisely represented in all the details of the construction of the Mishkan and the Beit HaMidrash, level within level, until the Holy of Holies. Because of this, it was possible for the divine glory to manifest itself there.
There his glory could be sought out and found by those who desire to attach themselves to him. Similarly, there is a sanctuary above, corresponding to the sanctuary below. There, all the heavenly legions give praise to this divine glory. With words, the whole world is filled with his glory, and blessed is God's glory from his place. Note 60.
Just as in the sanctuary below, the role of the Jewish people is to unite in praise of God, so too in the sanctuary above, the heavenly beings unite in praising him.
The reason they specifically praise his glory is that it alone is the force behind everything that exists in the world, as we explained. Similarly, another verse states, "May God's glory last forever. May he rejoice in his handiwork." This verse expresses the fact that God's glory becomes elevated through the praises of his handiwork.
Sorry. So Lev, we're on 517 now. You
Got it.
Note 61.
Here the Ramchal is expressing another aspect of the praise of the angels, that when they praise his handiwork by proclaiming, "May God's glory last forever," this actually causes God's glory to become more manifest in the world, and thus more elevated. Quote, "He rejoices in his handiwork," unquote. We will see that the angel's ability to praise God properly and cause this elevation depends on man's efforts to unify and perfect the world below.
This is what our sages meant when they stated that the words of of this verse were uttered in praise by the spiritual beings that oversee the natural world. Note 62.
The Talmud describes how at the beginning of creation, the different types of vegetation did God's will by growing in certain manner. When the spiritual being appointed over the natural world saw the natural world doing such a great thing, he uttered these words of praise to God, thus causing the divine glory to become elevated.
However, the divine glory becomes elevated through the collective contributions of all the different elements of creation, each one according to its own unique function. This was the aim of the Kohen when he performed the sacrificial service, particularly with the daily offering. This offering is described as my offering, my food, since it was the sacrifice offered before God every single day for the benefit of the entire creation. Through this offering, the Kohen would aim to elevate God's glory by bringing together all the different elements of existence, each one according to its individual function. All this involved very great wisdom, which the Kohanim needed to be familiar with in order to approach God on behalf of the entire Jewish people. In this way, they would make sure that their service was truly favorable before Him. For this reason, the verse states, "The lips of the Kohen will preserve wisdom, and the people will seek Torah from his mouth." They would have the intention of connecting all of creation with the Creator, and they knew what was needed in order to achieve this. They would have all the necessary detailed intentions, which involved knowing the secret significance of each part of the sacrifice, as well as the sprinkling of the blood and the burning of the incense. All this involved deep hidden matters that bring about the completion of all existing things by connecting them with their Creator. The full explanation of this subject is extremely extensive, but this is not the place for such a discussion. We can nevertheless say that the overall purpose of the entire sacrificial service was to connect all parts of existence, the lower worlds and the higher worlds above them, with the divine glory which fills the entire creation. As the verse states, "Do I not fill the heavens and the earth?" Note 63.
See Derech Hashem. Quote, the highest wisdom decreed that in order for all things to receive God's sustenance, they must first bind themselves to each other. The lowest things must bind themselves to those above them, and those, in turn, to the ones that are still higher, continuing in this manner until the root forces, which in turn depend on God Himself, His sustenance is then extended to these forces as it spreads downwards appropriately to all levels of creation. In this manner, they all regain their ordained level and function. Unquote. The Ramchal describes there how the morning prayer service accomplishes this task, but this applies even more to the service done in the Beit HaMidrash, for which our prayers are a substitution. I'm sorry, Beit HaMikdash, not Beit HaMidrash.
This whole process took place within the specific patterns that were set in place for this purpose. This joining of the entire existence with the divine glory can be compared to the idea of servants gathering together to take shelter under the protection of their master. Note 64.
See Kelach Piskei Chochmah. The Ramchal states there that since the divine sustaining force is the source of all things in the lower worlds, it is not complete without them. Therefore, they must all be connected to it through all the appropriate means that have been put in place. These means consist of all the structures in spiritual beings that connect the lower worlds to the divine sustaining force. Then, the lower worlds become like branches that are included in their sources, or, quote, servants under the protection of their master, unquote. Consequently, the divine sustaining force becomes complete and ready to receive an influx of blessing from the divine forces of emanation that will then inundate the lower worlds. What does inundate mean?
To flood.
Okay. I thought that the word inundate had a kind of like a negative meaning, like to flood unknowingly, but that's not what it's meant here.
Like to overwhelm, though, there is the sense of
Mhm,
quickly.
Okay. Thanks.
The righteous have a further individual role to play with
Hang on,
regard.
no,
Oh,
sorry.
so
Just
sorry.
before you go,
Yeah.
so again, it seems to me that the idea over here is that a lot of what we do and a lot of the Torah is basically the guide for bringing the divine glory into the world. And a lot of that has to do with positioning things, making this world a vessel to contain the light. And that means getting the different parts which are necessary, getting them to relate to each other in a specific way under certain conditions, then God's glory comes into the world. It's kind of the avodah, that's our work. Our work is to make this world, prepare it, make it fitting, align it with those upper forces that allow them to then come into the world. Yeah, that's what I'm getting out of this. I would love to know what you guys are getting out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like my briefest possible summary is that there is a substantial dependence upon the actions of the lower worlds and lower beings on how manifest and thus present the glory of God is in the lower worlds, and analogously the middle worlds and higher worlds.
Mm-hmm.
Just the dependence between
Right.
the actions of man and the presence and glory of God. More presence, more glory,
Right.
with better actions.
Nice. All right. Dan, or Lev, you want to add anything?
Don't think I can at the moment.
Okay. It's coming.
Oh,
Not-
I'm
Not
ready.
in a
I want to see where it's going. I'm not ready yet either. We'll see.
Okay, fine. Let's go.
Yeah. The righteous have a further individual role to play with regard to the divine service that has been entrusted to them, as we explained above in part 3 of this chapter, note 65.
The daily service of the Kohanim brought a collective blessing to the Jewish people and the world, ensuring that it functioned in the best possible way according to the possibilities of that time. In our time, the daily prayer service of the Jewish people performs this function to a lesser extent. However, the evil in the world prevents this process from functioning as it could. It's therefore the individual task of the righteous to remove this evil and allow greater blessing to come down to the world. In Kelach Piskei Chochmah, the Ramchal writes, quote, "Evil prevents the branches from drawing close to their source. This lack of unity is what evil brings about, and this is what must be removed," unquote.
Mm-hmm.
This role is to complete the process of perfecting the created world itself, as I made clear to you above. They do this by bringing about a new rectification each day in their particular area of responsibility. 66.
Each righteous person has a different task to fulfill in the rectification of evil, and each day he has a different part of that task to carry out, depending on the cycle of time and other factors.
God then sends a corresponding outpouring of blessing to the world in response to this arousal and preparation in the world below. You have already learned, Chapter 1, Part 2, and Chapter 2, Part 4, that all the deficiencies in the created world result from the concealment of God's perfection and oneness. When his oneness prevails, it has the effect of bringing about the complete rectification of the world, removing everything that separates between the creatures of the world and their creator. 67.
Deficiency can only exist because God conceals his perfection. This allows evil to exist, thus creating a barrier between the lower worlds and God. Once God's perfection is revealed, evil is destroyed and there is only good. We learned in chapter 2, part 3, that the only element of God's perfection that is revealed within the world is his oneness.
We explained this idea of separation earlier with regard to the
Lev, you good? You got 521?
Yeah, I do. I just I'm having a difficult, I don't know, like a difficult time looking at the screen right now. So I was listening and I was like, listen better.
Okay,
But
okay. Oh,
so I'm with you. I got the next page. I'm just gonna. Yeah. Here. Sorry.
sorry, Dan. Go ahead.
You're all right. We explained this idea of separation earlier with regard to the verse, "It is only your sins that separate between you and your God." 68.
Man's sins increase the divine concealment. This causes evil to become stronger and increase the separation between the lower worlds and God.
Now, when the righteous carry out the divine service we mentioned, God's supernal oneness becomes aroused, and some of it becomes revealed according to the possibilities created by that particular act of divine service. As a result, the entire world receives a new rectification according to the quality of that service. There is no act of divine service that does not cause an additional rectification to come to the world by means of God's oneness being revealed. Note 69.
We learn in chapter 6, part 2, that evil is caused by a lack of unity between the different parts of the creation. This is paralleled by a lack of unity within the divine emanations that bring everything into existence. The rectification of the righteous serves to unify the creation and remove evil as much as possible, thus causing unification among the divine emanations. This in turn causes an influx of blessing, which further removes evil and further unifies the world. In this process, there are three factors involved. One, the creation of unity. Two, the removal of evil. And three, the love between God and the Jewish people. See the next paragraph of the main text. To understand how these interconnect, we can use the analogy of the relationship between a husband and wife. For the relationship to be successful, they must try to actively introduce unity and harmony into their interaction. But they must also endeavor to remove any negativity. As a result, the love between them is strengthened. They become unified like one being, and any negativity between them disappears. So it is in the relationship of the righteous with God. So it is in the relationship of the righteous with God. They must actively unify the creation while simultaneously struggling to remove evil. This causes God's love to be stirred towards the Jewish people. As a result of this love and closeness, God sends down a force of oneness, which removes the barriers of evil that separate between him and the world.
Are these footnotes part of the Ramchal's writing?
No, it's the translator.
Mm.
I found that quite a difficult one, actually. That's why Jason's come to save us.
Phew! Thank God, just in time.
Okay, he's connecting. Okay.
Um,
You found that footnote difficult?
A little bit. Well, I'm not quite sure what the two elements of removing evil and creating oneness. To me, it's you got the puzzle pieces. What's evil is that they are disconnected. So once you connect them, you've got rid of the evil and created the unity. He seems to be talking about something else. They must actively unify the creation while simultaneously struggling to remove evil. Unless is that what he means? Like the act of unification goes against the force of evil and which causes separation. Hi, Jason. We can see you.
I'm at BWI actually.
Oh, Shalom Aleichem, welcome.
On my way to Rochester and be in Toronto for Seder's, but unfortunately the plane got in a lot later than we anticipated.
Oh, okay. Well, thanks for joining in any case.
And so it's gonna be a little late. It ended up being a lot late.
Do you have your book with you?
I do not. I read it at home and then left it there.
Okay, I'm gonna forward. Do I have your WhatsApp? I might have. Because Lev had some printing issues actually, so I actually have just taken a lot of pictures. I'll forward you what I have here. What page are we on now? 520.
520 and 21.
Okay.
Background.
Yeah, Jason, you're
Yeah, I'm gonna mute everybody.
Can you do?
Oh, thank God.
I'm sorry about that. Eric, you're gonna have
You're
to find
okay.
another.
Tell everyone to shut up already. You're
Yeah.
lying.
Hey, we're doing Torah here. What are you?
Okay, you should have got it. Remember that the book, whatever, the notes go backwards, 521 to 520, 523 to 522. Okay, why don't we where are we up to? You want to just start at the beginning of the page again?
We just did that really long note 69.
So we're not going to do that again. Fine. Let's
So
go
why don't
from-
we start from just after that?
Fine.
This revelation.
Yeah, this revelation of divine oneness removes whatever separation between the creatures of the world and their creator and connects them to the divine glory. As a result, the lower worlds become attached to God's holiness through all the ways that he arranged to transmit his holiness down to the world. These ways are the various types of divine emanations which cause all the different types of blessings with which God blesses the world. In the first stage of this process of
Just,
attachment,
Just I don't know if you've ever seen sometimes in a siddur or something, you'll see a little meditation before doing a mitzvah, and normally it has this thing called l'shem yichud, right? It's
For the sake of the unification.
there you go, right?
Good K, love K.
Right. So it's the sake, and it goes on a little bit. The sake of the unification of this with that, the kuchabrichu and the shechina. It's that's what we're doing when we do our mitzvahs, right? We're this mitzvah is going to be part of putting the puzzle of this world back together.
so sorry, this is the unification of the lower, because another way to understand it is that it's the connection between the lower world and the higher world, right? That's
Right.
the unification.
It seems that there's a lot of there's a lot of dimensions, there's a lot of separation that affects all of them, and your mitzvah can actually affect many
Across all
dimensions.
dimensions.
It really is a Rubik's Cube. I was convinced from the time I saw it that that's this world. But yeah, that's what you do. You affect many worlds, many different things. It depends. And then, of course, you could understand why a mitzvah with better intention or a mitzvah done by a person on a higher level generally will have a different effect, right? It's not just the act of the mitzvah, it's the unification that comes through it. Yeah, Lev.
I was just going to add that it's also conversely very frightening to think that if we have this power doing the mitzvahs, what happens when we don't do them, and what happens when we not? I mean, like I've done things like that I thought were like maybe like off the derech or just not good, and then I look out in the world and just see this like horrible things that happen like the same day. You know that you didn't cause it, but if you can make this great good stuff with the unifying force happen with good, what possible things can we be doing by transgressing or not doing good? And it's so like it can be frightening.
Yeah,
I don't know. You can get lost in the rabbit hole, but
no, I think you're right. If you take it for real, if it's a reality, so then yeah, in both ways, you're adding a lot when you do good, and you're taking away a lot when you do bad.
yeah, I mean, just with lashon hara, like it is so powerful to when you start talking badly, I mean, about other people, and you say things, and it literally can like break. I mean, it can just be so destructive, and it's just such a simple thing. Like I just start moving my mouth and just destroying things. It's unfathomable. I mean, it's just hard to recognize like in the normal day-to-day routine.
Do you think, yeah, okay, that's lashon hara, and you see that a little bit, but like the word us studying here tonight, do you that needs a bit more belief, right? That there's real goodness coming into the world through this. The truth is that I do feel that it's something very unique about the Torah. That Torah study, you always feel like you did something good. You might not understand a word, and you might argue, but like when you're finished, it's like, yeah, you were involved. There's a sense that you were involved in something really positive, really good. Okay, I don't know if you guys feel that. I do.
Is study to equivalent to them all, like to all the mitzvahs, or to the
the
morning connected something?
I think what that means in this sense is that let's say that a mitzvah, your tefillin is connecting a certain part of creation with another. There's one puzzle piece. Learning Torah is like a force that moves all the pieces closer to each other. It's the super force over the game. That's why it's keneged kulam. It equates to all of them. All right.
Wow.
In the first stage of this process of attachment, the connection of the souls of the Jewish people to God's holiness becomes strengthened. Note 70.
Once the righteous have made the necessary rectifications down below, the next stage is the strengthened attachment between the higher and lower worlds. This attachment of the lower worlds is through the souls of the Jewish people, since we are the most elevated part of the created world, and the world was created for our sake.
Just remember,
This is like
footnote 70.
Yeah. This is like connecting a part of something with its whole. This is the inference of the verse, his people are a portion of God. Note 71.
We've learned many times that God's true essence is completely beyond any element of created existence. The connection spoken of here is with that aspect of God's creative power, which is according to the level of created existence.
Okay, he remember in the beginning of the book, he like went over that point over and over and over again.
Oh, yeah. This is also the concept expressed at the beginning of Shir Shirim. May he kiss me with the kisses of his mouth, which indicates a strong attachment. This refers to a powerful type of connection that can be made between God and the Jewish people, the parallel to which, in the human realm, is the kiss. As a result of this strong attachment, God transmits an outpouring of holiness to the Jewish people and to the entirety of creation. Note 72, which I'll say is see note 64 above.
Thank you.
This outpouring of holiness is of a divine and spiritual nature, an outpouring of blessing that brings success and prosperity even in this world. When the actions of the Jewish people cause the lower worlds to become attached to God through a connection of love, God arouses the love that exists between him and them and finds favor in their service. Thus our sages, included in the daily prayer service, who chooses his people Yisrael with love, find favor the eternal, our God, in your people Yisrael and their prayer. It is this divine favor that enables their service to have the power to perfect the world. This is what we already explained earlier in part 3 of this chapter, that it is only through the power of being commanded and the accompanying divine favor that the performance of mitzvot is effective and rectifies the world. Through the power of this divine favor, each act of divine service has the positive effect that it has, causing an outpouring of blessing to be transmitted to the world in all the ways that have been prepared for it. Note 73.
We learned above that the power of the service of the Jewish people to rectify the world was first given in Mount Sinai and is renewed continuously. Here we learn that the extent of this power of rectification depends on how much we arouse the love and connection between us and God. God then, quote, finds favor in his people Israel, unquote, and empowers the mitzvah we are performing to have the required effect. This is why we pray, quote, find favor, the eternal our God, in your people Israel, unquote.
This new blessing then pervades the entirety of the lower worlds and subsequently reaches each individual thing in the measure appropriate for it. Note 74.
At this point, we finished our overview of the relationship between the sustaining force and the lower worlds that we began at the beginning of this part. We've seen that the aspect of the sustaining force that descends to connect with the lower worlds is called the divine glory. We've seen how the purpose of the service in the Beit HaMikdash was to connect all the lower worlds to their source in the divine glory, and how the rectifications of the righteous further enhance this connection, bringing blessing to the whole creation through the arousal of the mutual love between the Jewish people and God.
These are the righteous ways through which God interacts with the lower worlds for their benefit and advantage. 75.
These words refer to all that we have been discussing in the last two chapters concerning the system God uses to run the world, this world of good and evil.
Anyone that looks deeply into them will find that they are designed with profound reasoning and knowledge. Let him explore every aspect of the Torah and its mitzvot. He will not find a single exception to this principle.
That's cool. It's very empowering to be good, right? It invites us to understand the magnitude of the good that we can do and the magnitude of the effect that it can have.
Very much so.
Yeah, I mean, it takes, I don't know how to explain it. I think that this text suggests responsibility on the part of the Jewish people and effectualness on the part of the Jewish people, which I think is a very Jewish value.
But what do you mean by effectualness?
Yeah. What's effectualness?
To be effectual is to have power to influence. I don't see in American Christian culture a prevailing opinion that that any one person is effectual in the world. They may behave well for themselves, and that's what they're supposed to do. But to suggest that their actions have substantive effect, I don't think it is a terribly American Christian value or belief.
Yeah, you know what you're making me think about actually is the Chabad mitzvah tank. You know, the idea of, you know, some Chabad guy going out there and getting some guy who's never put on tefillin before to put on tefillin. Like, what are you doing? Like, what's the actual value of that one act that this guy is going to do once in his life? So, you know, you could say, well, you know, you never know, we'll lead him. I think, you know, most outreach organizations would say, maybe, but, you know, there's a more logical way to go about, you know, bringing this person in, and, you know, but I think the Rebbe had this sense that Mashiach, you know, the unification was close, and you never know. It might just be that guy in, you know, Kuala Lumpur putting on tefillin in the airport. He's like, whoa, you know, it all came together. Like, it's you.
Rabbi, I have a very brief and very funny story about
Okay.
Chabad.
Okay.
So 10 years ago, when I know everything by my kids' ages, right? They were 2 and 4, and we used to go to a playground near our house in Hunt Valley. It's like a big playground that is right by Oregon Ridge. You know, I'm there with the 2 kids, and, you know, there's lots of other kids, you know, in the playground. And, you know, at that age, they still, you know, run around, come back to me, and go right around. You know, they keep interacting with me. So I'm talking, you know, in Hebrew to them and yelling in Hebrew across the playground. And this guy who was wearing a kippah hears me and comes over and strikes up a conversation and says to me, "Oh yeah, you know, I'm from the Chabad house, and you know, who are you? Where were you born?" You know, he strikes up a conversation, very friendly. And then at the end of the conversation, you know, 3-4 minutes later, he says to me, "So you should come to the Chabad house." I said, "No, I'm not religious." He said, "That's why you should come to the Chabad house."
Very good.
Like, if I weren't religious, he wouldn't have invited me. You know, it's not the point of Chabad.
Very good. Okay, gentlemen. Well, I guess, you know, they actually one of all the days, so notice to drown everyone out. It strikes me as something that follows this notion. Was there maybe a follow-up text, Jason?
There's more in the text.
Okay, fine.
That it was
I didn't
mostly
see the
Jews
text
who wrote the
disappear.
original Marvel comics, as Spider-Man says, with great power
Yep.
comes great responsibility.
There you go. Yep. Very true.
I think that's footnote 79. I saw that in there.
So I think of all the days in the year where there are more mitzvot than any other day is Pesach. There are tons of mitzvot. So it's an interesting way to go into it, thinking about, each one is rectifying something else. So we can bear that in mind and improve our meaning and enjoyment. Chag kosher v'sameach.
Are we planning on meeting again next Tuesday?
We should. Why not? I'm good. You guys are good?
Yes.
I may be traveling and not available, but I'll let you know. I'll send an email if I can't make it.
Fine. All right.
Okay.
I may be stitching somebody up. Otherwise,
Hope
I'll
not.
join. I know.
Glad everybody's well, though.
Yes. Enjoy. All right,
Bye,
friends.
everybody.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Okay. Bye.